My name is Neil Albert, and I chair the Board of Commissioners at the Housing Authority. I'm calling this meeting to order. This is our regular monthly meeting of the District of Columbia Housing Authority being held today, July 8, 2020. As I mentioned, it's about 1:02 p.m. This meeting is being held via WebEx video conferencing and can be viewed live via the DCHA website, linked to Facebook Live. I'm going to ask those of you who are participating in this WebEx that you put your devices on mute unless you are speaking. And for commissioners, if you would like to ask a question, please indicate in the chat by typing the word question, and I will acknowledge you. If, as is our custom, I am going to ask—
Has joined the meeting.
A
participant has joined the meeting.
Our secretary to establish a quorum and figure out who we have here from the board.
Thank you. Commissioner St. Jean?
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Council? I'm sorry, Commissioner Council, are you there?
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Talaferro?
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Falchecchio?
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Strickland?
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Von Gossary? Commissioner Von Gossary, are you there?
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Slover?
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Ortiz-Gow? Commissioner Forrester? Commissioner Neal Jones?
I'm here.
Thank you. And Chairman Albert?
Yes, present.
You have 9 commissioners present. You have a quorum.
Thank you. Again, I'm going to just remind people that if you're not participating, please mute your devices so we don't get your feedback. It is our custom to ask for a moment of silence during our board meetings. I'd like to do that at this time, but as we of silence, I'd ask you to remember the public housing residents who have lost their lives to COVID-19, the 120,000 Americans who've lost their lives to COVID-19, but also, as we mentioned last board meeting, the numerous Black men and women who've lost their lives to police brutality and white vigilantes. And so let's take a moment of silence, as is our custom. Thank you so much. So this is our regular agenda. In addition to the public viewing this meeting live, we ask the public testimony and comments in advance. And we received a few, which will be read into the record a little later. First, I'd like for us to consider, commissioners, the minutes of the June 10th board meeting. It's in your board book. At this time, I will entertain a motion to approve the June 10, 2020 Board of Commissioners meeting minutes.
Make a motion that we approve if there aren't any corrections or changes.
It's motion by Commissioner Council. Is there a second?
Second.
It's seconded by, I think, Commissioner Talaferro. Is there anyone that is opposed to the minutes? So the motion carries. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to our Executive Director for his report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know I mentioned this, but I just wanted to mention it if there's anyone from the public watching or dialing in, that DCHA has now established a partnership with United Medical Center and George Washington University School of Nursing. And that program is going to be an opportunity for us to deal with our vulnerable populations that really were exposed during COVID-19. The idea of this partnership between the three entities is to look for the opportunity to provide necessary health screenings, not just COVID related, but just in general health screenings to many of our residents to keep them in touch and in tune with any medical care that they may actually need. So we did send out that press release this morning to the public, to some of the media outlets to let them know exactly what's going on with the DCHA in this particular time frame. So again, if it goes beyond COVID-19, it goes to your normal testing that many of us may get on an annual basis, but trying to also encourage our residents to get regular health screens. And this is hopefully a way to make it easier by making it remote and mobile, and so they can get to it by just walking out their door. So thank you, Keiko. As far as my report goes, I'm going to run through a quick PowerPoint presentation for everyone. And we can just get started on, transforming DCHA. It's been a huge task over the last 2.5 years. But the basic idea was to just do that, get back to the basics. So there are 4 pillars that I've tried to look at over the last 2.5 years, which is number 1, to provide better service to the residents, modernize our technology, improve communication, and revitalize public housing overall. We've done this in several different ways. We've restructured many of our departments and created performance management outcomes, along with fixed systems, and created other opportunities. One way that we restructured our departments, and I'm sure that everyone is aware, that we slid resident services under the guise of property management operations. At one time, it stood separate, just as we did the same thing on the human capital side by moving the ECOD department, eligibility and continued occupancy division, under the Housing Choice Voucher Department unit. But also we did another piece, which was early on in the year, we created the Relocation Orientation and Training Counseling team. And that team now reports to the Housing Choice Voucher. Now, that was a new unit that was created, which allowed all of our departments that have something to do with mobility or relocation of residents to sit in one department versus be spread out throughout the agency. Now we are very cohesive, and we're able to deal with our residents in a better way. And it makes us more efficient when dealing with relocation efforts. Performance management, I've talked about it over and over again using dashboards. That's something that we've been doing. And we've implemented some new performance management systems, and also have engaged our leadership with a workforce assessment group, even during this COVID period. We fixed broken systems. We're still going through this. Even in the last 4 months, we've been able to address many of the work orders that might have been backlogged. And we have eliminated 16,000 of them that were created by COVID. We also, remember, we brought pest control under in-house. So we deal with that. We only use a contractor when necessary and needed. To date, we haven't had to use that outside contractor very much because Mr. Burke and his been doing a really good job. We also got them the equipment that they actually needed, commissioners, which were the trucks and the various pest control equipment to be able to service the properties. And he doesn't just, when he does this, he doesn't just do it in a vacuum. He has the actual system that we apply to each property, especially when we're trying to rid our senior buildings, especially of the rodent population that has unfortunately taken over the district. And we continue to talk about our 3 C's of being courteous, clean, and complete. We still have our modified apprentice program, training program. We're still talking about how we're going to bring that on board this month, over the next couple of months. And we have a vacant unit team that turns around units faster now than ever before. And we have that customer service engagement office that we're utilizing. Keiko, I'm going to skip because we can upload this presentation to the board also. Right, modernizing technology. These are very important pieces, especially during the COVID-19 period that we're in right now. We've created, new technology goals along with new applications and adopted, a different approach to business intelligence. We're eliminating paper. Alethea actually this Thursday is going to have a meeting with the senior leadership to talk about how and going more digital with everything, not from archiving, but also on a daily basis. So Alethea, along with Shanita, are going to be leading that charge for us on becoming, a paperless entity. we've done all these applications, and you may not necessarily be aware of it over the last 24 and 18 months to eliminate, paperwork orders, just eliminate paper just in general throughout the agency, along with figuring out ways to allow for payment walk-in centers. So these are the new systems that I just wanted to report out to you this month that are being utilized right now. And I'm not sure if you were aware of the online HAP payments, online work orders, and workforce and talent acquisition. We're doing that all virtually now, and using social media platforms to do it. We're collecting data. That's something that we didn't do very well in the past. And that also leads to our customer and resident engagement of how we communicate with everyone. So as we gather data now, we're using it in the best way possible to get information out to the stakeholders. Now, this is our Tableau. This is that document that I talked about, or the documents that I talked about earlier, and have been talking about so much with you, that outline exactly where we are on a daily basis from an operational tool. This is the dashboard that I look at and senior leadership can look at every single day. And you can see to the right where you have the green bars, that's our 90-day plan. Every 90 days, each department head redoes their 90-day plan. So this is something that we just implemented over the last 30 days since we had our last board meeting. So we use these visual tools on a daily basis. ANC, we had our ANC meeting that was spearheaded by Commissioner St. Jean a few weeks ago. That was really important because that was another stakeholder group that we necessarily didn't always come into contact with. So we're definitely striving to improve our communications, not only locally, but also nationally with some of the other industry organizations that are out there. And I will add that we also have included the OAG's office into that mix of communication so that they know exactly what's going on with the agency over time. Again, just PowerPoint just reiterates our connection with the ANCs, the advocates, our employees themselves, residents, and also you as the Board of Commissioners. We can skip. Revitalizing public housing. Again, these questions were always asked early on. What is the scope of our problem, and ultimately, how do we pay for it? I think that we've been very, very successful in identifying what our issue is, substantiating it, especially when we dealt with the OCFO's office over the last year, and we were able to clearly establish why the need was there, how it occurred, and what made it develop over the period of time in terms of neglected preventive maintenance. And I think that's one thing that we have answered, and a way to say that is we have presented enough information and credible data that gives us the opportunity to have a capital budget line afforded to us moving forward for the DCHA to address capital needs that are out there. And that's the administration and the council understanding what our plight is. And also, I think it goes to great testament of our agency and the members of the team, especially the OCP, being able to clearly present and articulate exactly where we are and what our strategy needs to be through our transformation plan. To the best of our ability, we're going to try to implement phase 1 of our transformation plan over the next year. It's going to be very intense, and we're going to be moving at a quick pace. So when Chairperson Albert asked about use and allocation of dollars and how we were going to move that quickly, we need to be able to have all our ducks in a row to be able to not only show capacity but also implement at the same time any use of funding that may come to us through the district and or through HUD in future months. So this is the 29, we're showing right here the 29.4 million and the 14.9 million, roughly $40 million that we received for the last fiscal year. And that has rolled over from fiscal year 19 into fiscal year 20. This is the way we utilized it. You'll be able to look at this again. I did show this to you once before. You'll be able to upload it at your leisure. We'll actually upload it to Diligent so you can see it. For the OAG update, I'm sorry. We want to keep this pretty mindful that we are in a litigation mode, but these are the things that we have been addressing over the last few weeks. We believe that we're working towards a settlement agreement in dealing with the OAG that will be supported at the end of the day. I think it was at the end of the day a clear lack of communication between the parties and the entities involved, but I believe we're addressing many of their needs. So this is just our increased capital budget from $25 to $50 million. This is what the highlights will be if we do receive $50 million on a per annual basis moving forward for the next 2 years, we'll be able to hit 4 properties in terms of redevelopment, rehabilitate completely 2 properties, create preservation at 19 properties, and complete lead abatement at 7. Our project-based voucher dollar amount did increase from $30 to $35 million based on yesterday's council meeting. That will allow me to go ahead and ensure that all projects that are allocated dollars in that particular fiscal year, I can make that award with true confidence that the money is there. Before, there was a question of a shortfall of about $2 million, which didn't allow me the ability to actually sign off on the allocation for a project-based voucher project that might have received an award. But now I can. Oh, on the tenant-based voucher side, we did get an increase, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, up to by $8 million. So that will give us an opportunity to support the DHS program moving forward without any disruption or having to necessarily carry over monies from the previous year. This also probably will allow us, I need to look at it again since this just occurred this week, will allow us to ensure that if there are any tenant increases in terms of cap contracts and or any tenant moves that might move the needle in terms of the average lease-up amount. Remember, we also do, combination of paying for security deposits and different things like that out of this particular fund. This probably will alleviate the pressure to ensure that we get as many vouchers out on the street as we possibly can, moving that tenant base from 102 to 110 million. And we believe that we're changing the game. We're using all these components, modern technology, building better resident services, and revitalizing public housing all at the same time. These three movements of the agency to clearly allow for a transformation plan. When we first talked about the transformation plan itself, I often talked about it wasn't just a transformation plan for buildings and units of housing, but it also was a transformation plan for the agency itself in the direction that we're going. And one thing that I can say from COVID-19, devastating pandemic that hit us, but it did put us in a position where we had to rely and be resilient in terms of our resources that we had at our disposal, but also forced us to think outside of the box, how to continue our particular process and the services that we were giving to the residents. Very important. I think we've done a great job at doing that. So this is going to be something that we're going to keep ongoing. You're going to get a report similar to this, probably not as lengthy as the 59-pager and as this one, but you're going to get something on a regular basis from the administration each month, updating exactly where we are with not only internal movements and departments and new programs that we're bringing on board, but also we'll start diving in and explaining to you where we are in terms of our capital improvements and any other capital programs such as redevelopment opportunities that are out there. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you so much, Tyrone. So I have a couple of questions, and then there are some others that have, some of our other commissioners have questions. So my first question is, so again, thanks so much for this very detailed report. Is there a similar report that residents get or could expect to get from the Housing Authority that really demonstrates the changes that you have made and are continuing to make as the leader of this organization?
This is going to be put online, Mr. Chair. This particular PowerPoint will be uploaded to our website and put on all our media platforms so that people can take a look at it. And we'll continue to do that. We'll continue to update it in the same manner, especially with other stakeholders who may not know our daily operation, including, not just residents, but other stakeholders such as the advocate community. They'll have access to these things.
Okay, so my second question is, so I appreciate all the initiatives, the technology initiatives, all of the changes in personnel that you didn't say that, but that you've made, the additional funding that you're getting, or we hope to get from the District of Columbia government. How are all these changes impacting or benefiting the lives of people who live in public housing residents? If you were to sort of summarize the impact and effects of the changes that you just articulated in the report, how would you describe how it's impacting public housing residents?
Well, first, I want to say that we're not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, and we still have a long way to go. But I do believe we're better than where we were 2.5 years ago. we're being more attentive to the residents' needs. We're acting quickly in terms of work orders and things that come about. Not to say that there are things that we don't get to or there are still questions by residents, but I think we're being more attentive. And I think it's becoming a change in culture of the agency across the board, understanding what our responsibilities are to our customers and to our stakeholders that are out there and how we communicate those things to them. I believe that you'll notice, not all the issues and problems that plague us have gone away, have vanished. They don't go away after, many years of working in a certain direction. They don't just poof and vanish. But I believe that we've been able to address it. And one way I show it from a metric that is probably a metric that no one necessarily recognizes on a daily basis or a monthly basis, is that many of the issues that we normally had when we first came on board with residents coming in to complain about work orders in their particular units and at their properties have diminished a great deal based on our efforts across the board. So you don't have those same comments coming to you as a board member every single month about the DCHA didn't get to a work order or they neglected something. There are still concerns and there's still things that we need to address, but I think my departments in PMO and Housing Choice Voucher, based on the changes that we've made internally, have truly come about to address many of the needs of the residents.
All right, thank you so much. Commissioner Council.
I want to acknowledge with this pandemic, I have to say and give kudos to Congo's shop. IT has stepped up to the plate to make it possible for the whole agency to be as smooth as it's running. But Tyrone, if you can you give us a reading on the savings of our utilities and actually go in a little more depth on by us doing our own in-house pest control? How often are we doing it? Monthly, bi-weekly? Every 2 months? Is it done by appointment only, or how are we doing that? And the system that we're using in keeping the areas clean, especially these senior buildings.
Well, we're still doing I can start from the latter. We're still doing our cleans of the areas, especially the senior buildings, at least 3 times a day, 7 days a week. That's being done, especially those common areas where people will come into contact with one another or follow up after another individual has left a particular area. We're still doing that through PMO. And also by bringing back a full staff on the PMO side, we're able to address that directly right now.
I can only stream if I'm the host.
Quickly. In addition, Commissioner Council, Jose just threw me. I apologize. In dealing with our pest control, we still do it based on work orders, but Mr. Burke has a system set up for any building or any complex that has increased rodent issues. He sets up a clear system of assessing it and mapping out a plan to actually deal with it. So our senior buildings, for instance, he goes in, he has his method, he has his way of starving them, and then he goes and figures out a way to deal with the cleanup component. But he's doing that for all of our senior buildings. It's for those buildings that work, he has a particular schedule on a monthly basis or on a monthly basis of going into those particular buildings. But he also has ongoing maintenance, just like anything else at the other property, to try to rid us of pest issues. And then he also does work off of the work order system for individual residents.
Thank you.
Bill Silver.
Questions. First one was, did I hear you say in there that you're doing as part of all this work, a workforce assessment?
Yes, sir. We're doing a workforce assessment.
In progress at the moment?
Yes, sir. We're actually doing it. We're actually doing it via WebEx with the team.
Firm that's doing that work?
I would have to check the exact date. I think it was right around the beginning of the year they started to engage. 2020, yes.
I appreciate it. When do you think that work will be done?
Well, you know what? We've done a component of it with putting together a new org chart. We were hit with COVID, so that's put us back a little bit. I believe I'm going to throw out a projection of right around the end of September, October. By the October board meeting, I believe we should have something ready to talk about and discuss. But some things, Commissioner Sloper, we're actually implementing as we go along. But I believe we'll be completely finished by no later than October.
All right, appreciate that.
It's a little tougher. It's a little tougher. I'm sorry, just want to say it's a little tougher with COVID and doing it via WebEx. It's a little little more difficult to get everyone together.
No, I appreciate those challenges. Thank you. The other two questions I had were related to your monthly dashboard report. One of them was page 4 of traditional public housing as of June 2020. About 75 to 80% occupied.
Correct. And some of our occupancy has slowed down also because of COVID, not moving people in during that time frame. But also on the other side, Commissioner Slover, we have units that we have to take offline for major modernization. And that's a big piece to the puzzle on that occupancy side. And because units that need major capital repairs, we're not able to do it. And also they're part of the properties that are on our transformation plan.
Cool.
Mr. Garrett.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Slover.
Since you've been,
Mr. Garrett.
Mr. Talfair, do you mind if I finish?
How many units do we have that is not occupied?
Commissioner Slover, could you just finish your question and I'll?
Yeah, I appreciate that. Occupancy level since you came to the agency, or have you seen it go down, go up? I mean, it seems vacancy is a big number. So what has that been the way it's been?
Well, it's been that way, but I think it has increased, Commissioner Slover. Again, it's increased because I've made the decision that some units that are just inhabitable. Remember, we took almost 139 units offline and moved residents out due to lead or environmental issues just over the last year. So those are some administrative decisions that I've had to make to put people in better situations and better units. So that's affecting our occupancy level at the same time.
That's a decision. I just wonder if there's a plan to bring them back online anytime soon, or only as a long-term transformation plan that you see our occupancy rising up.
I think occupancy is going to rise based on the longer term plan, because individually you can have some of those units that we had to take offline, Commissioner Slover, probably were averaging about, anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000 to turn it back around and put it back online. If there's a unit that needs less money, we would do that. There's also an occupancy issue, and I'm going to bring this up, that we believe we're going to be able to address, which is approximately about 200 units that we're going to be able to lease up next month. And those are single occupancy units. It's going to hit our occupancy level increases somewhat, but we had units that were single occupancy units that were offline, ready to be turned around and ready to be leased. But we were offering them to our vulnerable populations, such as individuals with violence against women or special needs populations that we had to address. Now that we've gone through that particular list of preferences, we'll be able to put those 200 units online and offer them to individuals on our waiting list, actually, and that's the goal for next month.
Are you going through it? At one point, I remember there was a slide that was put up that showed that we had a number of multi-bedroom units that were occupied by single member households. And I mean, is there any increase our occupancy in terms of actual people through that way, or are we not going to do that?
No, we are. We are looking at where we can write what we call, in our industry, we call it right sizing, where we can right size individual families to units where meet their actual bedroom needs.
I'd love to get some update on that at some point. And the last thing I'm going to ask is, when about rent collection, and you had made an offer that you thought it would go down to 20% delinquency, and now it looks like we're at 29%. Is that a trend that you're concerned about? Or turnaround?
It's actually not 29%, Commissioner. We were always running at about 13%, at about a 13% collection rate. The gap decreased. We were right around 87% collection on a monthly basis, right around there each month. The dip has actually only been 7% based on COVID-19. So interim recertifications that have come in have only impacted our bottom line right around 7%. So you have to distinguish what is COVID versus what was our normal collection rate. And collection rate periodically was right around right around 87% on a monthly basis, fluctuated between 80 to 87%. And that's historic for the agency that we're trying to change.
Okay, I'm just confused because it says 71% collection.
Right, and we need to clean up the dash, and I think we need to clean up the dashboard because it's pulling over some incorrect data. I went over this with Barbara just yesterday, and we were going back and forth about what was COVID in terms of our collection rate versus what was our normal average, and our normal average is 13%. I think Barbara may be on the line; she can confirm or validate. But normal collection rate was right around 87%. We got hit with COVID, dropped us down to about 7, another 7 points.
Mr. Gary, Commissioner, I want to add now. Okay, we did see a dip in the months of April, May because of the tenants that at the very beginning during the COVID, they got this impression that message said that tenants did not have to pay rent. So I believe that PMO start working with the tenant. That if you recall, back in April, the rate was even lower, but it has been moving up. We have been collecting the money from the tenants. But Mr. Gary is correct. What we before this COVID, we have a consistent about 13-14% uncollectible rent before the COVID-19, and this has been ongoing for many years for these agencies.
Well, I don't doubt that. I just 71%. What it's attributed to is still 71%, and so it's a hit in the budget, whether it's attributed to whatever it's attributed to. And so my only point in bringing it up was we did a 90-day analysis, and you had plugged in 80% rent collection. Now we're down. Have you changed any? You're going to change anything as a result?
No,
you think we'll be okay?
I think we'll be okay because, Commissioner, when we gave you that average of what we were looking at, we were basing it on what our average collection was prior to COVID-19. So we were already thinking we were at 13% collection average on an annual basis already, but 7% is tacked on to it. So that's what we were basing it on. We're not, although the nation said, the worst case scenario will be 20% based on COVID, we're not looking at it the same way. We've always had this particular issue with this 13 to 13% in terms of collection. And again, it's culture. Environment of culture where people have tended not to pay their rent for whatever the reason, and now we have to, take legal action against them to move forward, which is somewhat of a slow process for us to begin with.
All right, Director, you didn't answer Mr. Council's question about their savings on utilities.
I'm going to get back to him, Commissioner Council. I don't have the utility savings number with me right now, but I'll pull something together and get it out to you and the Board of Commissioners on what the savings looks like.
And Commissioner Talafaro asked a question. If you could answer that too, I'd appreciate it.
Across the portfolio, Commissioner Talafaro, we have right around 1,300 vacant units, which would include properties at the transformation sites and other units throughout the portfolio that we cannot turn around based on cost.
I understand. Thank you, Judge.
Okay.
Commissioner St. Jean?
Yes. Good evening, everybody. So it's the partnership from the George Washington University, United Medical Center, Howard University. I just want to say thank you for that, as well for the response to COVID. In addition, the safety and health training, what does that mean when you say health training for the COVID-19 for your professional development for the HR practices to adapt to remote work? And in addition, for the $24.5 million, that was the FY 2020 fiscal year for Judiciary, Kelly Miller Townhomes, George. Are we pushing that back? Because I know we had an estimated time for Kelly Miller that was March 2020, by 2020, etc. Do you have a timeline for that as well?
All the money for the 24.9 and the $39 million is going to be all put into play no later than August 2020. So we know that it's going to be obligated no later than August 2020. As far as the type of work that we're going to be doing, it all depends on how we move through these various phases of COVID as to what work can be accomplished at that particular time. So Judiciary is an example where we have to go out on the balconies. Are we ready and prepared for residents to be engaged by contractors? So we are somewhat behind based on COVID, but we will have all the monies allocated no later than August 2020. And you asked that was the last question. So the other question.
The health training, the safety and health training for COVID, that's under your.
That's going to be run by HR and also by risk. That's going to ensure everyone understands the need and necessity to, if they're sick, to remain home or feeling ill. We also brought in some technology to do that with various apps that we're going to use on behalf of the agency for employees to fill out and complete before they come to work, to make sure that they're feeling well and able to come in without the fear of spreading any kind of cold or any type of flu to anyone else, or COVID-19 itself to other employees. Also, we're going to be doing making sure that employees know that, especially on the PMO side, if they have to do any particular work where they come into contact with the COVID-19 family, because remember, we're still going to continue until this is lifted. We're still going to continue to contact residents prior to doing any work orders, making sure that their household is safe for our employees to actually enter to do any physical work. So those are things that we're still doing and we'll continue to do until such point in time we don't think we need to do it anymore. So those are some of those safety protocols that we've put in place. Also, commissioners, I didn't show you a picture of it, but we purchased face coverings for all of our employees that will be given out when we are prepared to return to work. They'll be given those, and they'll be discussing opportunities for social distancing. From the pictures that I showed previously of not only Customer Solution Center last time, but also the Housing Choice Voucher floor now, the way it's set up, we're going to ensure that our employees are in a safe environment, along with the other tools and pieces of equipment that we're purchasing for them. So.
And is there a scheduled, when the buses come around for senior properties, is there a scheduled where George Washington University Nursing going to be doing their COVID screening? Is there a schedule for that?
Not yet. No, not yet. We're still working on some of the details, but we'll make sure that information is uploaded and put out to the public, and especially to our residents. There's also one thing I just wanted to say about this partnership with United Health and also with GW. We're also in discussions and talks with Howard University also. So that Howard University, theirs is going to be a little bit different. Theirs isn't going to be as mobile as GW. They're actually going to be located in some of our properties on site at some of our properties where we'll allow for it in Ward 1. So Howard, we hope to have them on board before the end of the month to be doing some of the same type of health screenings for us, not just COVID related, but just general health screenings for our residents. And Howard will be concentrating on properties in Ward 1.
All right. And who is leading the environmental initiative? And, who's leading environmental initiatives? I know HUD gave us an extension for the lead abatement. Mm-hmm. So where are we with those?
We've been in discussions and talks. I think HUD came back to us last week to start talking about, properties where we can just deal with some of the lead issues that are on the outside of properties, not in the actual units. They would like for us to start scoping out a schedule for that. The environmental initiative now is being led by OCP.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much for your report, Director. We appreciate it, all the good work that you're doing. Keep it up and keep us informed and the public informed. We'll now turn to our resolutions. As our custom, when we were able to meet in person pre-COVID, the public was able to provide comments on the resolutions. We have received one such comment on Resolution 2012, which is regarding the MTW plan. I'm going to ask our Secretary, Alicia McNair, to read and or summarize the public comment for us at this time.
Okay, thank you, Chairman Albert. This comment is from Deborah Frazier. It says, "Herein are the comments from public housing residents and housing choice voucher holders, DCHA's moving to work annual plan for 2021. It seems the entirety of the waiver requests to DCHA not to improve the quality of housing units for residents. Objections are raised with Section 3, Initiatives 33 and 34, identifying as housing activists for the last 15 plus years and residents over that time of both public housing and housing choice voucher program, the experiences of myself and my peers in that the inspections process is a constant problem that this initiative will not solve as it stands. The challenges are many. First, that there are ongoing backlogs that they have to edit, this online backlog of inspections and that goes far beyond the agency's 15-day waiting period. The agency itself consistently states that they are backlogged for inspections in the way. This addresses this problem and the hundreds of complaints over the last 10 years from residents. DCHA insists on hiring outside contractors because their staff could not keep up with the demand of demanding questions and backlog. DCHA third-party inspectors. Are there inspectors being hired in-house to address this question? What is the agency's capacity in this area? Since they have admitted to a backlog, what is the ratio of inspections units requiring inspections? What is the demand for inspections? The agency needs to show the data on the issue rather than simply ask for a waiver with the assumption that they can correct this long-standing problem. The waiver request should only be considered only if DCHA can show the number of inspectors hired, number of units currently requiring inspection, and the backlog of inspections and how long it takes to address the current backlog. Consistency. Inspections vary when assessing the quality of the unit. There are ongoing resident questions such as whether the arbitrary inspection standards and their applications, the agency inspector and ambiguity over which issues are the responsibility of the tenants, or in the case of the voucher program, what is the responsibility of landlords? The issue of the responsibility varies based on whom the inspector is. There is a clear lack of standards and responsibilities for tenants versus landlords. In order to gain clarity, many tenants got copies of the Federal Housing Quality Standards Guide to guide us through this process because we requested to see the copy of the DCHA Housing Quality Standards for inspections and carry out in the District of Columbia. The multiple requests were denied. The various disputes on classification of responsibility of tasks include whom cleans the carpet, especially in case of wear and tear from previous tenants, ranges especially in cases of normal wear and tear and the previous tenant, maintenance of the unit washer and dryer, especially in cases where the unit came previously equipped, pipes that were broken or busted due to weather or water pressure, who is responsible for the maintenance in these cases. Inspectors show clear bias towards DCHA and landlords when tenants can be failed for above issues by one inspector and then after abatement, the tenant can be passed on the same criteria. DCHA inspectors are predisposed to failing tenants on inspectors and repeatedly puts tenants at risk of eviction. When a tenant is evicted from a consistent failure of inspections, the resulting vacant unit is priced 2 to 10% higher for rent. The DCHA waiver gives a heavy emphasis on cost savings to the agency without addressing how the quality of housing units will improve. How do you balance savings time in travel and independent scheduling of contractors and maintaining the quality of a unit? It is clear that DCHA prefers profit versus people. Of DCHA's 20,000 residents and X number of units, how many are currently awaiting inspections? What's the backlog of inspections for new units? Residents' impact must be considered. Often, once a tenant has met all the requirements of a lease-up, including giving notice to their old unit and placing a security deposit on a new unit, they are barred from moving in due to the lack of DCHA inspections. Tenants face anxiety and housing limbo. You can't go back to your old unit because you gave notice, and you cannot move into your new unit because it isn't inspected. Bringing the inspection process in-house will not address these problems. Virtual inspection, Section 3, Initiative 33 and 34. The issue of virtual inspections, we object that the virtual inspections are a serious problem area, as subject is a factor of failing with an in-person inspector. How much more so will it factor in virtual inspections? Cameras cannot capture all the issues a unit may have, i.e. water pressure. It cannot capture the status of washer and dryers, dishwashers, windows and door seals, plumbing issues such as slow leaks, stoves, refrigerators, and door locks. Some housing issues can only be addressed in person, so subjectivity is an issue. What will the inspector see? What will he miss? What is the quality of the virtual equipment? Who will review the virtual inspection, and where for how long will the tapes be stored? A serious question not addressed in the initiative is who and how the choice of which unit to be inspected is decided. Which of the units will give a virtual inspection? which gets in-person inspection, and in those numbers or the percentage, will it be easier to virtually inspect housing vouchers as opposed to ACC units? Since cost savings and DCHA priority, that will be the cost of the virtual inspection technology. How many pieces of this technology will be used? How many staff will you train? Will there be one for each inspector? Who will be trained on them? How long is the training? What is the cost of the training? Is there a hidden third-party contractor in the endeavor for training and technology? If so, what is the cost? Does DCHA now have the capacity to train the staff to train and this equipment and perform this task? As a moving to work agency, DCHA is of course at liberty to try innovative solutions to housing issues, none, however, at the expense of the quality of life of the resident. This implementation should be guided by best practices of other housing authority agencies or corporations that have used or are currently using this technology. Without data on the effectiveness of the strategy, DCHA is experimenting, using its residents like test subjects and lab rats. With virtual inspections, where is the tenant input? In current practice, DCHA allows, even encourages tenants to be present in the initial inspection. How does the tenant have input in the virtual inspection world? Will they be on the team? Will they be at a location looking at the camera with the other so-called DCHA inspectors to view it? We will also note that the virtual inspection will use a tool to ensure the most common HQS violations are addressed. What about uncommon violations? Also, as a flaw, the voucher holder will attest that there were no visible issues in the unit. What about the issues only visible through the naked eye? In summary, the Moving to Work Plan, Section 3A and B, Initiatives 33 and 34 are problematic and they should not be granted by HUD. And their bullets, the inspection process inspections has proven to be subjective. Are there enough trained in-house inspectors to meet the current demanding backlog? Data needs to be gathered on unit inspection backlogs and how long it takes to clear. Do these initiatives apply to all subsidized units or just HCV units? If only HCV units, how do the initiatives address inspections at ACC scattered sites, tenant-based or public-private partnerships? There must be a process for tenants to input for virtual inspections. How and who decides which units are inspected virtually? HUD should consider these initiatives as short-term demonstration projects rather than granting it through the TVW period ending 2028. There is too much potential to damage quality of life to extend to FY 2028. Data on the demonstration project 1 to 2 years should be analyzed to determine if there is indeed an agency cost saving in the inspections department and how the savings are spent, and most importantly, are housing units safer as a result? Do they require less frequent inspections? Is there still inspection backlog? HUD and DCHA must be reminded that this housing authority recently identified 14 public housing communities in extremely urgent conditions as a result of a decade of underfunding from HUD. How much of this disrepair could have been minimized by regular, thorough, rough inspections by qualified personnel strictly following HUD's federal housing quality standards? Inspections led to the repair that can reduce unit deterioration and improve maintained housing stock. Wouldn't this be a long-term preventative strategy and ongoing cost? This agency should put cost savings secondary to the quality of the housing unit so that our residents will not suffer from more decades of despair. Also, what's the planning for assessing disrepair and deterioration as well as need for inspection in the entire housing portfolio, i.e. scattered sites, public-private partnerships? We, the tenants of DCHA and residents of the District of Columbia, urge HUD to reject this DCHA application for waiver for third-party housing quality inspections and virtual housing quality inspections. More data is needed as well as more time for public comment before these initiatives can seriously be implemented. Submitted by Deborah Frazier, survivor of Arthur Capper, Carlsberg, Hope 6, and on behalf of ACC and HCVP tenants.
Thank you so much. So there are a lot of questions, assertions, and in that statement. I'd appreciate if there is a response from the executive director to Deborah and the ACC residents. And please copy myself and Commissioner St. Jean on that response. Now we're going to move into our resolutions. The first resolution that we'll move into is Resolution 20-09, which is to accept the final audit of DCHA for fiscal year 2019. I'm going to ask Barbara to just give a high-level summary of the findings, no more than 3 to 5 minutes. If there are additional questions, we do have the audit team that's available to help answer those questions. So,
actually, Mr. Chair, Joanne Wallington from the Audit and Compliance Department is going to kick us off.
Okay, Joanne, go right ahead.
Good afternoon, commissioners, and I'm going to take this from Barbara. I'm Joanne Wallington, Vice President of the Office of Audit and Compliance. And before you all for your approval today is Resolution 2009 to approve the fiscal 19 independent audit for DC Housing Authority. With us at the meeting, at the public meeting, is Clifton Larson Allen, our independent audit team, but you all have been briefed and received a hard copy of the audit report, hopefully to your homes. A physical copy is also uploaded in your diligent book. Chair, you asked for an overview of the findings. I'll start with the financial audit. There were no findings that resulted from the financial audit. In the financial review, the financial report is in the package. There were 2 findings from the compliance audit, one on the MTW eligibility program, and that related to both the continued eligibility, timeliness of inspections, also recertification. The second finding was related to the cluster program, which is our Section 8, what we refer to at DCHA is MOD SRO, and those findings had to do with initial eligibility and surmounted to records that weren't able to be verified from when the participants were brought into the program. Other than that, you all have received the update from the from CLA, and if there are any questions, we're happy to entertain those now.
Thank you so much. I don't see, there's only one question that popped up in ours, and that's from Aquarius. So Aquarius, if you unmute yourself, you can ask your question.
Question. Joanne, I don't know if this is a question or assignment because we spoke to the auditor, and one of my main concerns was that I know for a fact approximately 6 to 9 years ago with CSC funds, those funds was a part of this audit. However, I noticed with this particular audit, CSC funds were not included in that audit. So I requested the auditor to seek the document in which I'm speaking of, and I would like to see some type of written documentation. How come the auditor looked at CSC funds at that time, and to be specific, they were Potomac Gardens funds, and those funds were checks written to $25 to residents, and that auditor informed me at that point in time, and there are some commissioners that's sitting on the board today was there, and my name was called out with Potomac Gardens. And I just want some type of documentation to tell me why was CSC funds from Potomac Gardens was in that particular report. And in this report that we have, we spend about the same amount of money with the same amount of checks, which, as you know, that I asked you to send that information and that HUD investigate me on that information with Potomac Gardens. These were federal charges that I took very, very serious. And as you know, there was a challenge here. I talked to Kenneth Slaughter about the same situation because the 2 residents that had the allegation with me of mismanaging and theft of money along with Can I Live, I was investigated by the special agent, at which time they too have probably made their decision. So I want to clear this up this year in a written documentation, and I guess you would have to talk with one of the lawyers on how to do it. Thank you so much, and I want that to be a part of the record.
Consider it part of the record.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So there are no further questions on the audit. At this time, I would entertain.
I do.
Okay, so, hey, I'm just seeing it. Go ahead, Francine.
Yes, so when we were going over in brown bag for the single audit findings for the housing choice voucher, are we actually prepared? Did we actually work through that? I don't know. I know Carolyn Punter is not online, but Aisha Thompson.
Yes, but I can answer it, Commissioner.
Yes, sir.
Directly. Yes, we did create management plans for both findings, and those have already been implemented.
Okay.
Those management plans have also been accepted by CLA.
Okay. Thank you. And for our audit for our housing choice voucher, the admin plan, are we done with our admin plan by any chance?
No, we're not. We're not completed with it. We'll be bringing particular amendments probably in the month of September.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. So at this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve the resolution 20-09. Is there a resolution?
The motion.
Motion, rather. Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Thank you. Commissioner St. Jean,
Yes.
Commissioner Council,
Yes.
Commissioner Talaferro. Commissioner Talaferro, are you there for your vote? I'll circle back. Commissioner Strickland?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Neal Jones?
Yes.
Commissioner Forrester?
Yes.
Commissioner Falchecchio?
Yes.
Commissioner Von Gossry?
Yes.
Commissioner Slover?
Yes.
I'll circle back to Commissioner Talaferro. Are you there? Okay, Chairman Albert,
Yes.
you have 9 yes, the resolution is approved.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Joanne, you see how easy that was? You should present again in the future. So let's move on to Resolution 20-12, which is to approve the annual moving to work plan. This is a 2021 plan. I'm going to turn it over to our executive director again for brief highlight, brief summary, mainly for the public's benefit. We received a briefing a little earlier on today. So Tyrone, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, so commissioners, the one thing I want to point out on Resolution 2012, which is what was brought up by Ms. Frazier's comments, was that one big piece was about our moving to work and the idea of having the concept of virtual inspections being done by our Housing Choice Voucher Department. We are the best practice, I would like to say. There are no other housing authorities that are actually performing this virtual function as of yet. I think people will model their program off of what we put forth, and that we have presented this to HUD, and thus far we have not gotten any negative feedback from the HUD officials in reference to our virtual inspection process. I also want to say that it is not a cost savings effort. The reason why we went forward with this particular virtual inspection process was to continue to help DHS in their need to house individuals coming out of homelessness. The only way that we could do it was to move through the virtual inspection process during the pandemic. And so that's why this was continued. That's why it was started. It wasn't started out of a need for a savings, but what we have found is that we are able to do more virtual inspections during the day than we would find doing it in the normal process of trying to work back and forth across the district to get to various units. So I believe that is a positive. Although it might not be a perfect program, it is a program that we're refining, and any clear suggestions that can be offered not only by you and also by the public and the residents themselves, but also any directives from HUD will definitely adapt our program to support this particular initiative, because I think it's positive, and I think it is a best practice that other agencies will start to follow in the future. As far as the overall MTW plan itself, it addresses our concerns and our needs for this particular this particular year. Next year, we'll be able to identify other initiatives and other things that we want to bring to the forefront if necessary. Hannah's on board right now to talk about the actual process, how we engage residents throughout the combination of introducing the MTW work plan. We did get resident input and feedback from some of the things that we were proposing to do going forward. I don't think it's a big stretch other than the virtual inspections and also talking about adding some RAD properties to our MTW program, any different than what we've been talking about and discussing throughout the last year. So I think the MTW plan overall just mimics what our process and outline has been based on some of the things that you've seen from the agency and we've talked about via transformation plan or anything that that impacted us via COVID. So Hannah, anything that I missed, just jump in.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Thank you so much, Director Garrett, for the introduction. You did not miss anything. We are excited about the initiatives that we're proposing this year. In Resolution 2012, DCHA is requesting that the Board of Commissioners approve the fiscal year 2021 MTW annual plan for submission to HUD and authorize the Executive Director and his team to execute all of the related certifications and forms. Just for the public edification as well, I just want to stress that the annual plan was prepared in accordance with the requirements outlined in Attachment B of the agency's MTW agreement. And DCHA followed HUD's prescribed public process to engage with the public and the agency stakeholders about the plan, including considering all comments submitted during the comment period. Thank you very much.
And one other thing, Commissioners, and just for the public, because they didn't hear about this part. The MTW plan not only talks about virtual inspections and processes for Housing Choice Voucher, but it also talks about our capital improvement for the overall portfolio and the use of approximately $9.6 million for modernization efforts throughout the properties on site.
Thank you so much. There were no questions in the chat.
I got a question. Commissioner Von Lashley, this is my baby who's work. So here's some issues. And what you'll probably have to do is just write some type of
question. 3, you're acknowledged to ask the question. Go right ahead.
Thank you. Okay, so with Move to Work, Initiative 11 on page 41, Initiative 23 on page 47, Initiatives 54, that's Initiative 19, and that is on page 56. It's on page 54, excuse me, and modification, that's not my name. Okay, so 78 is the streamlining resident community service, and 81, enhancing public housing lease enforcement operation, 92, rental RAD participation, which is on page 92, and on page 83, it would be supporting the grand families. To make this all in a nutshell would be this. Hey, you have some initiatives that it appears as though that the resident leadership is losing empowerment. Especially is one of the initiatives, I believe is 19, that HUD didn't get enough of citywide advisory board participation with the community service. And therefore it became a legal matter, and HUD decided to allow that to dismiss as an initiative. My question to you, Director Garrett, even though the DCHA Citywide Advisory Board did not have a discussion about it, and I do know that they did have a meeting with Hannah in regards to the Move to Work, and I also know there was no discussion about that. So I'm asking you, even though if the Move to Work passed, that you still as the director, but some of the federal regulations is actually saying that you have the authority to incorporate anything that we lose on HUD's legal base. You have the right to incorporate it in a way as a tool, being that we are Moving Work Housing Authority as an internal policy. My question is, are you willing to do that? That's just a yes or no answer.
Yes.
Okay, let's give him a chance to answer. Director. Yes. Thank you for your response. There's a question from Bill Slover and then from Francine St. Jean.
I appreciate Neil. Mine's not much a question. It's just a comment and an observation. I want to say thank you to Director Garrett and to Hannah, all the others who worked on this. This is a really important component to DCHA's ability to do what it does through the moving to work capacity. I know it's a lot of work to do this document every year. I would encourage all the commissioners to go read this document because it really gives you a really good insight into how the agencies run and what we have to do. So really just a thank you, and that's all.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Bill. Francine.
Yeah, Commissioner Bill Slover took that out of my mouth as well. I just want to say thank you to the whole staff and the Housing Choice Voucher to actually, you guys are the game changer, and I just want to say thank you for this.
Great. Well, that's a good note to call a vote on. So I would entertain a motion for approval of Resolution 20-12. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Motion and second. Roll call.
Thank you. Commissioner Neil Jones,
Yes.
Commissioner St. Jean,
Yes.
Commissioner Strickland,
Yes.
Commissioner Falchecchio,
Yes.
Commissioner Council,
Yes.
Commissioner Forrester,
Yes.
Commissioner Talaferro,
Yes.
Commissioner Slover,
Yes.
Commissioner Van Gossary,
Yes.
Chairman Albert.
Yeah.
You have 10 yes. The resolution is approved.
Great. Thank you so much, Madam Secretary. Final resolution today is Resolution 20-13, which will authorize the execution of a contract for DCHA's 2020 Physical Needs Assessment. And I think I'm going to start with our Executive Director, and then he could ask whoever he wants.
Okay.
Sorry, Laurie.
Commissioners, this will be my third and final time repeating myself about this particular resolution 2030. What we have here is the responsibility of DCHA to conduct a physical needs assessment every 5 years. This is the particular time frame in which we engage a contractor to come on board and go out to all of the properties to assess exactly where physically and what our capital improvement needs will be, so we can plan in the long term, short and long term. This is somewhat different though, because now we have also engaged the OCFO's office through the conversations about capital needs and our capital budget line moving forward with support from the district and the administration and the council. So in doing that, this physical needs assessment is a little bit different because we had individuals from the OCFO's office also sit on the panel when identifying individual group to carry out this particular task. The reason being is because we're going to be using the district system called CARS to input information from this physical needs assessment, which will shoot out based on a formula, a clear formula of what preventive maintenance should look like for our particular properties, along with the actual assessment, the actual capital needs assessment presents to us. That will give us a good range of where we need to be in terms of capital money over the next 2 to 3 years, and also long term. So Lori Bonds and her shop did the assessment of the bidders who came back. There was a clear distinction between bidders based on price. She'll talk about that briefly, and also Alex is available if you have any questions in terms of how we will implement and utilize the physical needs assessment moving forward. So Lori and Alex.
Good afternoon, Lori Bonds, Vice President, the Office of Administrative Services. Yes, as a follow-up to Director Garrett, again, we issued a solicitation on behalf of the Housing Authority for proposals in response to our request for physical needs assessment. That solicitation was issued March 29, 2020. It was posted in the Sunday edition of the Washington Post, the Washington Informer, Afro-American, the Current newspaper, El Tiempo Latino, and East of the River. In addition, we sent copies to DC Government Certified Business Enterprise members, as well as DHCD for Section 3 vendors. We also posted it on our website and sent it to 8 firms directly. again, to increase participation, obviously, with regard to our solicitation. We also had the opportunity for our first virtual pre-proposal conference, as well as a virtual site visit of the properties that are included in the solicitation, of which we had 29 attendees for our virtual site visit that included 14 firms. Based on the solicitation, we received 9 proposals, to which we did, as Mr. Gary indicated, have 5 individuals or 5 evaluators for our actual solicitation. Those included 3 representatives from our Office of Capital Programs, as well as one from our Office of Financial Officer, Chief Financial Officer for the district, as well as from the DC Department of General Services. Based on the evaluations, there was a determination that there were 4 firms that were in a competitive range. Of those 4, they were sent best and final offers, which means that we solicited and asked additional information and provided additional information with regard to the actual scope of work for the properties, and we asked for a better price proposal with regard to the work. Based on that information, we received pricing again from all 4 of the firms. As a result, we selected the Office of Capital Programs has recommended Bureau Veritas Technical Assessments, LLC. Their technical score was the highest. However, their overall score was slightly less. But more importantly, their pricing was half of the pricing that the AE Collective, the firm that had the slightly higher score. And again, the agency can be able to make a determination that based on the best value to the agency for the same services, they can be able to select another firm, which is what the recommendation is. Again, for a total of $257,206 for a 1-year contract in order to provide the services. The firm itself is located in Owensville, Maryland, does not have any exclusions by the federal or the district as far as being debarred or suspended. In addition, they provided a Section 3 compliance requirement, which was that they were proposing to provide training through an internship to hire an engineering intern. And although, again, the firm is located in Maryland, they have work sites that are local. They are willing to provide transportation for that intern. In addition, they want to make sure the intern can be someone that can be in high school, college, or someone who's focused on a STEM program in order to be able to assist with that job training. So no experience is necessary. Again, we are requesting authorization to enter into this contract again for a 1-year period. Are there any questions?
Yes, I have a question on the Section 3 compliance. So how are we engaging our residents and our participants to actually go into this goal, bring an intern in high school, college, or STEM focus to provide them with a job training? How are we doing that, engaging our residents and our participants?
So our Office of Resident Services manages, obviously, the Section 3 components. And so they're already aware that this has been proposed, and they're already working, obviously, on when this gets approved, being able to engage, obviously, our clients to market that as far as, again, availability of this program and this internship. But I will defer to Larry Williams, Vice President for Property Management Operations, or Brian Harris, that can speak more directly to exactly how they plan to market.
Thank you, Laura. This is Brian. Just to kind of reiterate what you said, you nailed it. The other piece of that is, as we've established, we actually have a STEM program now with 40 youth involved in our STEM program. So that'll be another avenue to add to pretty much push forward, and hopefully we can have a young person currently in our STEM program as we roll that out next fall, which will be right around the same time that this will be pushed through to actually have a young person from our STEM program to be a part of this portion of it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So we do Bill Slover. Bill,
thanks.
question.
Thank you. So can you just tell me exactly what what's the deliverable to DCHA?
I'll take that one. Yeah. So this is our regular every 5 years required physical needs assessment. The thing that's different about this one is that we did it in conjunction with the Office of CFO and DGS in order to ensure that this particular physical needs assessment will meet the criteria for HUD for a P&A, but it will also allow the OCFO staff to input the data directly into their capital asset replacement scheduling system, their CARS system, so that by fiscal year 2023, we will be in their system just like all the other departments in the District of Columbia, and we will be in line for regular capital allocations in every budget year based upon our actual needs. So we think that's very exciting. The report itself will be, given the current conditions of COVID and where we will be in 6 months, I don't know. It'll be definitely an electronic document. We're going to get drafts. We've asked for 3 tranches based upon the urgency of the portfolio. So the first 14 properties in our transformation plan were the first tranche, and we expect that information to be provided approximately 90 days after we give notice to award the contract. And then we'll review that. And then the subsequent tranches based upon urgency and level of need will roll out in 30-day increments from there forward until we get all of the drafts. So we're thinking the drafts will all be in by the end of this year. We're going to review and comment, and then the final reports will be due sometime around March of 2021.
Have you reviewed the 2016 document? Anybody?
Yes, I have, quite extensively.
And what did the agency do with that 2016 document? Did we achieve any of the deficiencies?
Yes, we've periodically addressed the issues. The thing I will say, without offering any, I don't want to offer too many aspersions against the 2016 document, but one of the things that when we were speaking with the CFO and speaking with the mayor's budget office, their concerns about the 2016 document were, well, based upon the work you did at the sites, do you think that document was accurate, and how do we trust that the data in there is complete and thorough? And I do have to say that in doing work at Judiciary and LaDroit, based on the level of survey that was done and the document itself, we found our costs to be higher than what was depicted in the capital needs assessment. And so we're going to be much more careful this time to not only project what's visible, but also project the related infrastructure work and any other hidden conditions so that we get a much more accurate depiction of what's really needed. And we think that Bureau Veritas, given that they are very experienced in this and they're one of the industry leaders in capital needs assessments, will be able to give us that level of survey. The other thing I'd like to say is that HUD offers some options in the template for physical needs assessment to add on work. And we've taken a forward stance in proactively including other things that we also think we will need. For example, if we think in the next 5 years we would like to do a RAD conversion on a property, we added that in and asked for the additional criteria for RAD P&As to be included in this survey. We've also added in the energy audit because the District of Columbia Department of Energy and Environment requires that we comply with their building energy performance standards by 2026. We want to be way out ahead of that, so we've included the energy audit component of the HUD P&A as well. So we're going to get all of those things bundled in a document that will give us all of our properties with a current assessment as of fiscal year 2021.
So it sounds to me like from your response that you think that the 2016 document wasn't best practices, like it wasn't the best document.
What
yes
I will
or no?
say,
Yes or no?
Here's what I'll say about it. We don't do destructive testing when we do a physical needs assessment. And so the assessment agency, when they look out there and see what's needed, they give a visual survey and they say, you need, a sink, you need a toilet, you need to fix a wall. But what I think they didn't do particularly well, just to be perfectly blunt, is they didn't see what was causing that condition to appear visibly on the surface. So for example, fix the wall because it's got mold and damage on it, but what else is happening behind that wall that's causing that? Is it a plumbing issue, a roof leak? So that's what we weren't seeing in the 2016 physical needs assessment, was the costs to do that kind of work. Now we're looking at, to use Director Garrett's phrase, no Band-Aids. We're not asking for a surface survey. We're looking for a surface survey that also anticipates what's behind the walls that's causing those problems.
Okay, I'm really trying to get to a point, which is, it sounds like we did this a couple years ago. Maybe we didn't get the best product. It sounds like we're going to get a better product this time that everybody's more comfortable with. What I'd like to see is some updates to the board, 6 months, annually, whatever it is, on how we're tracking on what we get back as a result from this work. In other words, this is our core business.
Yep.
These assets, and making sure that they're in good condition. So what I'd love to see is a document that everybody believes in and thinks is the right approach, and finds all the needs, and then figure out how to address them and make sure we're staying on task.
And we agree, Commissioner Slover, we would be using this. The way the physical needs assessments are usually utilized by agencies would be long and short term, would be short and long term, right? The way we're going to use this is the same method. What are the short-term fixes, short-term repairs that will be long-standing, in addition to what our long-term play will be. So our transformation plan may be revised to some degree by what we find in this new physical needs assessment.
I get that. I understand that. I appreciate it. I just sounds like we got this document in 2016 and maybe it wasn't the best thing, and maybe we're going to get a better one this time. It'll be more effective.
Yes, sir.
So if I can just ask a follow-up question, I know we have some other folks that have questions so as part of repositioning instruments, we did some level of assessment. To what extent is that information going to be fed into this exercise that we're talking about right now?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, are you talking about into the transformation plan or into the?
No. So to develop the transformation plan, we had some sort of an assessment of our properties. But in addition to that, when you were doing your lead remediation exercise, there is some assessment that went into that exercise. To what extent are we not going to be duplicating efforts that were done both by the lead exercise and the transformation exercise in this exercise that we are discussing right now?
Okay, so remember, this is required by HUD, so we have to do this when regardless of the. I think what it's going to do is going to fill the holes, as Alex was talking about. We might have had some holes from the document that we utilized, physical needs document that we utilized from 2016 to create our 2018 transformation. I think this particular physical needs is going to, there will be some holes that Alex was talking about. This will fill those holes, those voids that we might not have necessarily known about or seen or looked at from a different vantage point. So that's why I say our transformation plan may change. I don't think it's going to be a duplicate. I think there may be some things that pop up right automatically from the physical needs assessment, but I think there's going to be like point 1A and point 1B that were missed from the original needs assessment that was conducted in 2016.
Right, and I think if I could add something to that, I think that the opportunity to have a draft and then a final, one of the critical, I think, keys is consultants will, whether they're good or bad or whatever, consultants will, respond to good management of your contract. If you manage and ask the right questions, you'll get a better product. That's practically a given. So what our plan is we're gonna have a team of people who are experts in our portfolio on our side, who will read those drafts and ask those questions. So when we get a draft and it says fix a wall, and our own operations folks or our capital needs folks already know that there's something wrong inside that wall, like the plumbing is breaking or the roof is leaking or something else. If we don't see that reflected in the document and those costs reflected, we're going to ask those questions as part of our red line, and we're not going to let the final draft get done until we're satisfied that the questions have been answered.
And also,
Alex,
and also
who are the experts?
Who are the experts?
I just want to. An expert might be the CARS system. Don't forget, we're going to be plugging this information into the CARS system, which is the same thing that is utilized by the district. So I think that's an enhancement for us to identify pieces of the puzzle that we might have missed previously.
Yeah.
No, I get that. But so Alex just mentioned that we're going to be utilizing experts, right? So my question is, who are the experts? Are these internal experts? We're going to be contracting with external entities to provide that support.
No,
Where is the expertise that you're talking about, Al?
The experts I was referring to are internal operations people who know the buildings. What we want to make sure we do is we want to make sure that we're seeing all of the conditions that we already know about, because there are people out there every day who work for DCHA who are familiar with the building systems, the electrical systems, the HVAC systems. If the physical needs assessment team is not seeing something on a particular site that we already as a staff know about, we're going to make sure that that staff has a chance to weigh in on that red line and make sure that that information is properly captured in the plan and that the costs are captured. And what Director Garrett, I think, was referring to also is that we've also got, because of our collaborative efforts with the OCFO and the CAR system, we've also got people on the other side at the district level, both in the CFO's office and in DGS, who will also, I think, be able to help us with that as they start getting the data in to say, you know, if you're seeing mold on a wall or you know, damage, you have to look behind that and ask yourself what's going on. You can't leave it as a fixed wall, you know, move on, paint, you know, that kind of thing. You have to think about what is causing that condition, that latent condition, and incorporate those costs as well.
Okay, so let me just move on. So I know, John, you wanted to ask a question?
Yeah, I guess, and this isn't really even in comparison to the 2016 report, but this allows us to go deeper into the specific facilities and even into the room by room, area by area assessment. Is that still what we're aiming for here?
Yes. Our survey.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes. The answer is yes.
And could you tell us a little bit too how that then will help us inform the transformation plan and measure progress on it? I think it kind of goes to what some of the commissioners were asking about.
Yeah, so I think the first thing is better data in gives you better data out. So if we know more about the condition of the buildings, we will be able to more accurately budget for upcoming capital needs and capture all of the, not just the thing that's wrong, but also all the related components that feed into that system. For example, an elevator is not just an elevator. An elevator is also the emergency phone line that connects to it. It's the fire alarm system connections, all of that stuff. If that all is not in a state of good repair, fixing the elevator is not enough. So the capital needs assessment has to say the elevator work will generate a need to upgrade a fire alarm system, to upgrade a phone system, to provide internet connection to the building. All of those systems have to be incorporated into the cost improvement in any calendar year. And I think what that'll do is it may not be pretty at the beginning because we may see that we've got more than we thought we did in terms of things to do. But at the very least, we will have a much better comprehensive view up front so that we know what we're dealing with. And then we can go look for the funds and we can figure out how to plan for the work that we need to do.
Definitely, and I think it gives you know, the CFO's office, the budget office, DEMHED, it gives us all confidence in terms of, like you said, the data that comes out of it. So when we kind of assess what we need to invest, we know that it'll meet the need as well. The other question I have is, does this happen once or does it happen then annually? How often will we go back to check to make sure that something else hasn't broken or some other condition hasn't you know, changed what we saw in this assessment?
So HUD requires an update every 5 years minimum. I'm sorry.
This is a 5-year assessment. So every 5 years we're required to do this. But from this, you create an annual, what you do is you create an annual plan. Because we're MTW, it's a little bit different for us. But if we were the basic normal housing authority and you were running in, and I try to run that way, Commissioner, as if we were not an MTW authority, but if we were operating just as a functioning normal daily operation of a housing authority, we create an annual plan every single year. That annual plan is capital needs, just what you saw in the MTW. So as things pop up, we'll add to the capital plan or the capital need for that year. The one thing I think you also heard the OCFOs, Mr. DeWitt say in one of those meetings was that, based on what we're going to be doing with this physical needs assessment and dumping it into cars, our numbers and some of the needs might actually increase across the board. So that'll require us to actually revamp, definitely revamp on an annual basis, because there might be something that, as Alex said, we didn't see. We might have to get to immediately or in a more expedient manner.
Yeah, and sorry, Chairman, my final question was just to make sure, or observation, just to make sure that, this is great that we're moving forward with this approach, but let's make sure that we stay on it year to year. I think that's what you're saying, Executive Director, that we'll have a annual plan, annual report about where our progress is, and realizing that, things may break, or maybe there are things that we miss each year. So I think for us to continue to monitor this, it's a sound investment for us to make in the 5-year plan, but also making sure that we stay on it year to year as well.
Yes,
John, I would just add that earlier today, our colleagues discussed having sort of a more comprehensive, regular facilities development report, sort of property by property, so that it's front of mind, not just for the board, but front of mind for DCHA and its team. And so hopefully it will start to spit out, hopefully this new tool will provide information that can lead to the reporting that I think I heard my colleagues ask for this morning. So, but thanks for the question. Aquarius had a question. Aquarius, you're allowed to speak.
I don't forget the question, so go ahead.
You had a question for Mr. Harris.
I didn't even write it down. That was so engrossed. I'll pick it up later.
Okay, Francine, you had a question.
Yes, so in addition to this, for the transformation plan, is this going to be included a new communities of physical assessment? Is it going to include the new communities? And are we going to increase the 14 properties to maybe 20 properties now for the transformation plan?
I can't say that we're going to increase the number of urgent properties based on this assessment. We're going to stick with the 14 right now. This will be some time before we get the numbers back and the observation back from this. As far as the new community projects goes, the new community projects that don't already have a redevelopment plan attached to it will be included in the physical needs assessment. The ones that already do, such as Barry Farm and Park Morton, there's really no need to assess those. Although there are residents living in those, there is already a redevelopment plan for those particular properties.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So, Aquarius, you remembered your question?
Yes, I want to bring to the board's attention, I had Dr. Howard call at a resident initiative committee meeting, because at that time, my vision was seeing how to plan not Potomac Gardens, but also so that the board to understand that I have a degree in urban studies, social planning, and that Dr. Paul has been my mentor ever since I was 18. And once he appeared at the board, and I hope maybe somebody can archive his dialogue with the board, and we was talking about how you can plan and repositioning traditional public housing such as Potomac Gardens. Unfortunately, Dr. Paul, as Alethea knows, was going to come back to the board for my birthday, which would have been October the 12th, but instead he died of COVID-19. And what I'm trying to tell this board is when you're working with residents, and when residents have people like a Dr. Paul, who once he comes to your table, he talks, and then you get new board members and new directors that don't follow up, and you have a commissioner like me that stays on the board, bringing my own network to bring to the board, like Edgar Khan. I then had Dr. Paul. Who does this? And then you had Dr. Rosalie. She even came. You have 3 people who are the pillar of the District of Columbia that are icons. And all I'm asking you, Director Garrett, is I forward you a document. It's in reference to Potomac Gardens, and it's a model for any resident who wants to remain traditional public housing, but how to do it to phase out. And I want to be taken serious on that.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't know, I don't know how many of you know Dr. Howard Croft, but he was an anchor, a shaker, and a maker. And I'm proud of it. And believe it or not, he didn't always agree with me, but he knew how to defend me with justification and not because of my passion, because of my intellect.
Appreciate that, Commissioner. So at this time, I would entertain a motion to approve Resolution 20-13. Aquarius, do I hear a motion?
I motion.
Second. Roll call.
Thank you. Commissioner Council,
Yes.
Commissioner Falchecchio,
Yes.
Commissioner Talaferro,
Yes.
Commissioner St. Jean,
Yes.
Commissioner Strickland,
Yes.
Commissioner Forrester,
Yes.
Commissioner Neal Jones,
Yes.
Commissioner Slover,
Yes.
Commissioner Von Gossry,
Yes.
Chairman Albert.
Yes.
You have 10 yes, the resolution is approved.
Thank you so much. Thanks everyone for that. Now I'm going to ask our secretary to read the public testimony that was submitted to us before this meeting. Alethea, if you don't mind.
Okay, we have two. They're a little briefer. The first one is from Patricia Malloy, a resident and resident council president at Lincoln Heights. Her concerns: for over a year, the phones in the management office have gone out weekly and sometimes not working for weeks. I've had conversations with Mr. McQueen regarding this issue. Concerns at Lincoln Heights. She says Lincoln Heights sits on a hill. This hill needs to be cut every 2 weeks. There's only one laborer, Mr. Ballard, that can cut the hill. Also, he has to clean 50th Place Northeast. Mr. Ballard cuts the entire property common area and rides the lawnmower. During that time, his area is not being cleaned nor his building. Lincoln Heights has 7 laborers. They can at least clean behind him and blow the grass off the sidewalk. I have noticed Mr. Ballard getting off his mower and weeding behind himself. Also, the other laborers should cut their own areas. He can cut the hill in 2 days, maybe less. Another concern she has for safety. Within some of our apartment buildings, there are 2 or 3 families living in them. I have asked upper level management about this. Some of the buildings in the 300 block of 50th Street are hot spots. Mr. Spriggs has asked for help or suggestion from Mr. Pitts and Public Safety. For the past 2 months, the drug boys have been taking up shop on the steps beside my house at 501 50th Place Northeast. I have called MPD and I have talked to our chief about the gatherings on the property in the common areas. Nothing has changed. Last week, a resident had some of her windows blown out from fireworks. Commissioners, you need to speak with the management of Lincoln Heights. Residents have been begging for help and safety, crying, asking how can they get out of here. We need everyone's help. I can go on and on. These are issues that need to be addressed now and not later. Patricia Malloy. You want me to continue with Daniels or?
Yes, can you continue with Daniel?
Okay.
Yeah.
This next one is from Daniel Del Palago and from Empower DC. His concerns are as follows. Given the recent court ruling from the Bruce Monroe Build First site, would the board now support adopting the Park Morton Equity Plan proposal of acquiring units at the Wren 965 Florida as an alternative Build First site using tools such as master leasing? Given the urgency, would the board adopt a resolution asking Director Garrett to pursue this option via DMPED, working with the council at Park Morton? Number 2, currently DCHA is voluntarily moving Park Morton residents during the COVID-19 emergency while offering no Build First option. This obviously violates the spirit of the February 5th, 2019 community letter to Park Morton residents signed by Tyrone Garrett with DMPED Brian Kenner. As well, I understand funding around $1 million is left over from this agreement. Will the board determine the amount of this leftover funding and direct Director Garrett to apply it to Park Morton's Equity Plans REN project. Number 3, the Council at Park Morton under the PM Equity Plan has asked to be made a part of the development exercising TOPA-like rights. In the past, the existence of the lawsuit was a reason given as to why this was not possible. Given the ruling, will the board now consider this option? Number 4, Park Morton site development per Director Garrett's council testimony has about a $32 million financing gap overall. What is the funding gap for the current on-site phase? Number 5, at the past city council budget hearing, Director Garrett gave an update on relocation activity at Park Morton. Can we have an update on what's happening with relocation on the property? And finally, number 6, we recently heard that at the past at least two Park Morton residents received notices to vacate. Shantae High, resident council president, was one of them. Given the evictions have been frozen in the city, why are residents receiving these notices? Is this happening at other DCHA properties as well? If so, why? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Tyrone, could you respond to the 2 comments that we got from the public?
Yeah, do you want me to, they were pretty extensive, so do you want me to do them, try to do them now? I don't think I'll hit all of them.
Well, I don't know. I'm not expecting you to get into the details of everything that's asked,
So,
but
Ms. Malloy, I believe, for Ms. Malloy in Lincoln Heights, we can go over and discuss the, we can discuss with her the issues of public safety. I know she has a meeting already scheduled, and actually had a meeting scheduled with the chief last week that got postponed, but she'll pick up that meeting this week, not only with chief, but also with property management. Mr. Williams will also reassess, the use of the laborers on the site to see whether or not there's anything else that can be done to deal with that particular issue that she has noted. I know that for the buildings where we have a limited number of individuals, we have been looking to move those individuals into other buildings in Lincoln. So because that is a huge safety concern, similar to what we had at Kenilworth, with limited number of families being in one particular location, we think it's best that they move. So we have been relocating residents to other units within Lincoln and off-site so that they are protected in their safety. I'll have to get the exact number of how many people we have remaining in a building where there's only 1 or 2 families remaining in a six-unit building or something like that. I'll get that to you and advise the board at the same time when I'm responding to Ms. Malloy on her questions and concerns. I can respond on the Park Morton issue. The one question that I can respond to directly and upfront right away is on the eviction process. As you remember, we said to not only to the board, but also to the public in general, is that we would not move to evict anyone based on what the council had actually ruled on and provided for our residents. We weren't looking to evict anyone for loss of income or non-payment of rent, but we did reserve the caveat for any violent offenses or criminal offenses that we would have to continue the process for relocation or eviction process of residents if there was a criminal or violent act committed. So we're following along the same lines as HUD guidelines for any particular issues like that. So those are the only times that we would be looking to evict someone from their particular unit, commissioners, is if it was of a violent nature or a criminal nature, and that rose to that particular level. So other than that, we wouldn't be moving to ask anyone to leave us. And then the other questions the equity plan and Mr. Chair, we've gone over that before. It's probably not one of the things that the Housing Authority could actually support, but we'll investigate it once again. And as far as the Bruce Monroe issue, we have the ability to create an on-site build first location in phase what is now considered to be phase 1 for the Park Morton project, and that's what we've been doing. So residents who have been relocating have not been relocating based on mandatory moves. Again, they have the opportunity, because the vouchers were extended to them, they have the opportunity through choice to utilize their vouchers if they choose to do so, and that's to move either to another public house, either off-site, or they do have the option to choose a unit within the Park Morton location or another public housing unit within the portfolio. We did, and we have always advised our residents directly of what their choices are, and that during this COVID period, they did not have to exercise any right at all. They did not have to move if they did not want to. They could wait until all of this had lifted, and then they would be free to do so. When they would still have access to a voucher if that's what they chose to do.
Okay.
Any moves happen are voluntarily. The rest of the questions I can go into and write out a appropriate response to return to Daniel, along with copying the Board of Commissioners on.
So can we, at the next DevMod meeting, discuss Park Morton and Berry Farm?
Not a problem.
Okay, great. So I want to give commissioners, so thank you, Director. I want to give commissioners an opportunity to ask one final question or comment. So if you're interested,
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Mr. Garrett, what is the problem with your maintenance team at the judiciary? I've been getting pictures and calls that the people that come and clean it, all they do is wipe the elevator down and walk around the building doing nothing. So the people are putting a petition out to the Attorney General about to sue housing. Because of the virus that is going around, the place is as trash can got what you call them white things being after the trash, all in the trash can, not being cleaned. People had to come out and scrub their hallways because the maintenance is not doing it.
So, Commissioner Talaferro, you and I have a standard call set up now for every Thursday morning at 9:30. When we spoke last Thursday at 9:30, you didn't bring any of this up or present it to me because we keep going over.
I just got the call this morning, Mr. Garrett, about the judiciary.
So I'm going to have
Mr. Garrett, I also got a similar call.
Okay, I'm going to ask Mr. Williams to look in. I'm going to ask Mr. Williams to look into it because there is something going on, and what I'm going to also ask Mr. Williams to do from now on, because we keep getting these type of phone calls or we keep getting this type of thing after the gentlemen have gone through. We're going to start taking photos of everything that we do on a daily basis to document what's happening and what's transpiring at the buildings. That way, for us, when we're confronted with issues like this, we'll be able to present some type of evidence that says, no, we went in, did clean the building, and it looked this way when we finished up for the day.
Then you got what's the deal with Garfield? Mr. Garrett.
This is what I don't know what that question is.
The question is, you got Mr. Bo up there running the building. He's taking donations for the virus thing that's going out, and people give a donation to the building.
That sounds
He's taking the donations. Let me finish. He's taking the donations and put them in this little store he got. Then he's going to charge the people for them. Then secondly, the vending. The vending machine have not been up for almost 7 months. And the Bo canceled the vendor. He said he's going to get his own vending machine and get his own money, and that's it. But there's one more thing. He got a grant for $15,000. And the management and the resident don't know where the money at. Then you got another one that is on top of the roof. He got a garden. Then asked the management, didn't get a verification for nobody's house, and then got a bar up there on top of the house. I got the pictures and everything.
Commissioner Talaferro.
And the day I was up, let me finish. The day I was there, outside of Greenleaf looked ridiculous. The people are fed up with, I don't know what Bo was doing. He came in the office, started yelling at the manager and me, and telling that all the commissioners are the flunky of Garrett and Williams. I just looked at him and kept walking.
Mr. Chair, can I respond?
Yeah, please do.
Thank you, Commissioner Talaferro. Just one thing I just want to say. We spoke about this, you and I, last Thursday. And the one thing that I pointed out to you was that there were several district agencies meeting to discuss some of the situations that have been brought to my attention. And we're doing just that. So I would prefer not to try and answer the question in public because there is something going on that I can't make the public aware of. I understand that. Unfortunately, you might let the cat out the bag on this one, but yeah, we'll try to put it back in.
But Mr. Garrett, I just want to reiterate what my fellow commissioners are saying about judiciary, because I'm also receiving complaints about it. And so there's got to be something going on. So we'd appreciate if you can take a closer look, maybe your suggestion of documenting how your cleaning process works or isn't working, I think would be helpful. But I get calls on judiciary also.
No problem. I will start doing something. We'll do something in addition to, and at that point in time, I'll make sure that Mr. Williams writes a memo out to the Board of Commissioners after this. after the meeting.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Francine?
Yes, so I was wondering why we didn't go through resolution 20-14 today? Why was it pulled?
We pulled it because HUD extended the deadline, commissioners, for waiver request. And that will allow us the opportunity to, if we have any more waivers that we need to put out, it'll allow us to put those together over the month of the rest of the remaining month of July and August for any additional waivers that we might want to look at, versus doing it today and then coming back again in September and doing it a second time. Put them all together, package them up together, because HUD allowed us some more time, not just DCHA, but other housing authorities across the country on the deadline for submission of waivers.
Okay, thank you.
So it wasn't anything that we had done wrong or anything we weren't prepared for. We just may have some other additional waivers that we might want to make a request of HUD. And because they extended the deadline, we wanted to use that time frame.
Thank you. Bill?
I'm done.
Bill?
Yeah,
Mr.
appreciate it.
Garrett? Okay. Go ahead, Stover. I'm sorry. Glover, go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
As it relates to Park Morton, I know that Chairman Albert asked for an update at the next DevMod meeting. I just want to put on the record what I'd like to see in that update. You know, this Park Morton in particular and Berry Farm in particular have been going on for, well, way too long. And, I think we all saw the recent news that there was a setback in the project in terms of when and if it can go forward. And at some point, we're going to have to address whether we need to take a different strategy here with regards to the currently envisioned project, because it's not moving forward. And so, we have all these vouchers set aside that have been on the shelf for many years now that are dedicated to these projects and are not being able to be used in other spaces or places to create affordable housing, which is a net present value problem. And so I really would like you to give us a really detailed report as to what your plan is for these properties. And a couple of meetings ago, I asked you to look into the Avenue. Did anybody ever look into the Avenue?
Yes, sir, we did.
And what did you learn?
We didn't come up with a solution for what our issue is. And one thing about the use of, just so you know, what we did was we advised the residents who had vouchers or access to vouchers that they were able to utilize those vouchers at the Avenue if they chose to do so. We were also going through the process, Commissioner, of trying to identify I know people are asking us to master lease. It's not just that, it's not as simple. You have to have something to master lease with also. So that's another issue of a master lease at any particular property that might have been brought up by yourself or by Daniel. But we did make residents at the Park Morton site who have vouchers and can utilize them aware that if they felt the need or wanted to look at the Avenue as a possible property for their relocation space, that they could do so.
Well, that was not my intention of bringing up the Avenue. My intention of the Avenue was that we are now, a decade later, talking about off-site replacement housing so we can get Park Morton started. But that's what the Avenue was.
Okay.
So I'm wondering what happened. Like, where did we go wrong? Why is that? What happened there? And then I look at all these other projects that we're doing off of these new communities projects, and I see a history repeating itself. Because I asked you at one point, there's offsite at other ones that are being built and being filled with people, and then we're backfilling the public housing units. So we're going to end up in the same problem.
No, we actually stopped backfilling the units. We actually stopped backfilling units that we were relocating residents from, Commissioner. So we don't fall into that trap, because that was something that I pointed out or noticed when I got here. For the other properties, Park Morton, for example, what we're trying to develop is, and when we went back and forth about the relocation vouchers for Park Morton, one thing that I did bring out months ago when that came up about utilizing our demolition disposition application and the vouchers coming in was that at the end of the day, Park Morton was probably going to end up being our build first site on that first phase, within that first phase. So our concentration right now is those residents have all elected to utilize a voucher and or to move into another public housing unit. That ultimately probably will become the first phase of development at Park Morton on site there.
Great. I don't want to take up any more time on this, but I really think you need a seriously deep dive because things have altered and changed, and what you're saying right there doesn't make any sense compared to what I envision happening there. And so I really need to better understand.
No problem.
Thanks, Bill. And again, just Tyrone, since you weren't on the call we had earlier this morning with the board, and Bill's comments just reminded me that we really would like to get regular updates on all of our development projects within the DC Housing Authority. And regular we mean monthly, but also we think that we don't want to give you guys extra work. We realize that you're working real hard. So if it's a dashboard or some, Bill used database, I can't remember the term that I use, matrix, but something that we all can have access to so that we know where things are, right? At any point in time, we all have busy lives. You guys have a million things you're working on, but we feel as though that we're not getting sufficient information. And so when it comes across to you guys as though we're not being partners, but that's not what's happening here. I think there's just a lack of useful information that we need to figure out a way how we bridge that gap and how we bridge that gap quickly. So I know we're gonna have a hiatus in August, but it's a really good time between now and September, and I'm hoping it happens before then, to develop the dashboard that we've been talking about. If you guys need more information on what we're looking for, you can talk to any of the commissioners who were very passionate about it this morning. And I think it will help you guys as it will help us.
Yes, sir.
John.
Actually, I think you kind of addressed it. I was going to ask a specific, because I know a question about Park Morton, because I know we've been talking about that we would be able to, but that we talk about we'd be able to start phase one on site, but we haven't really heard when. So I think maybe that dashboard would be good for not just us, but for everybody else who's watching and paying attention and really wants to see the progress happen. Yeah, I think I'll just leave it at that for now. I think the dashboard is a good idea, and really if we can maybe resolve, I don't know that we need a formal resolution, but resolve to really spend the time going over that in September at our September meeting, I think that would be really helpful to kick off the fall and to close the year strong.
Yeah, so Deputy Mayor, I was hoping that we will probably have a Dev Mod meeting in the month of August, since none of us are going anywhere. So it could be a precursor to sort of a more informed meeting in September.
Absolutely, I'll be here.
Great, thank you. All right, well, thanks everyone for your time and patience with us today. I understand that we had some technical difficulty that prevented the live streaming of this meeting. So my apologies in advance to our public audience for that. Hopefully we'll get that rectified by the next Board of Commissioners meeting, which will be held on Wednesday, September 9, 2020, 1 p.m. via WebEx. Again, you can submit advanced testimony to board@dchousing.org by September 6th to be included in the record. So thanks everyone for joining us today, and our meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.